The twin moons of Velsara VII hung low in the crimson sky, casting an eerie glow over the sprawling metallic structure nestled in the arid plains below. The research facility was a marvel of Zintari engineering. Tall, sleek towers of shimmering alloy, connected by web of transparent walkways that seemed to float above the rocky terrain. The facility's walls were adorned with intricate patterns, symbols of the Zintari's dedication to knowledge and discovery. But this was no ordinary research center. Deep within its labyrinthine halls, beyond the sterile laboratories and humming data cores, a team of alien scientists gathered in a high-security chamber. They were some of the brightest minds of the Zintari race. Their pale, elongated forms hunched over holographic displays that flickered with images of an unlikely subject, humans. Dr. Vexin, the lead scientist, stood at the center of the group. His long, slender fingers tapped thoughtfully on the glowing console before him. His expression, a mixture of curiosity and frustration, was mirrored in the large, luminous eyes of the other researchers. "Why do they do it?" he murmured, his voice low and resonant. The other scientists exchanged puzzled glances. "We've observed countless species in the galaxy," one of his colleagues replied, his gaze fixed on a holographic screen displaying a series of human faces contorted in laughter. "None of them react like this." Dr. Vexin turned, his gaze sharp. "And yet humans do, even when faced with overwhelming odds. In situations where any other species would be paralyzed by fear, they laugh." He gestured to the holographic display, where a group of human soldiers was depicted, surrounded by a snarling pack of predators. The situation was dire. The predators were twice their size, with razor-sharp claws and teeth capable of tearing through steel. And yet, instead of retreating or succumbing to terror, the humans were grinning, trading jokes as if they were on a leisurely stroll. "Observe," Dr. Vexin continued, leaning forward. "Their heart rates are elevated, their adrenaline levels are spiking, they're in imminent danger, and they respond with humor. Why?" The room fell silent as the scientists pondered the question that had plagued them for years. They had dedicated entire wings of the facility to the study of human emotions, dissecting every nuance, every twitch and smile. But this defiance in the face of fear, was something they had yet to fully comprehend. "Perhaps," one of the younger researchers ventured hesitantly, "it is a malfunction of their fear response?" Dr. Vexin shook his head. "No, this is no malfunction. This is deliberate. It serves a purpose, one that we have yet to uncover." He straightened, his eyes narrowed. "Prepare the observation chamber. We'll need live subjects to fully understand this phenomenon." Within hours, a transport ship arrived at the facility's main docking bay, its engines thrumming softly as it settled onto the landing platform. A group of human subjects, soldiers, engineers, and civilians were escorted out, their hands bound and their faces set in grim determination. Dr. Vexin watched from a secure observation deck high above the landing platform, his keen eyes studying the humans closely. They were a diverse group, their expressions ranging from wary suspicion to open defiance. But what intrigued him most was the glimmer of something else in their eyes: humor. Even here, in the heart of an alien research facility, surrounded by beings they didn't understand, the humans exchanged glances and smirks. One of them, a tall man with close-cropped hair, muttered something to his companion, who snorted softly in response. "They're joking?" Dr. Vexin murmured incredulously. He turned to his assistant, a slender Zintari with a perpetually anxious expression. "Begin preparations for the first experiment." The assistant hesitated. "But, Doctor, we haven't—" "Now," Dr. Vexin snapped, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "I want to see how they react under controlled stress." The assistant bowed quickly and hurried to relay the order. Moments later, the humans were led into a large, circular chamber lined with shimmering force fields. Holographic projectors hummed softly, casting an otherworldly glow over the room. "Welcome, humans." Dr. Vexin's voice echoed through the chamber, magnified by the facility's audio systems. The humans looked around, their gazes wary but defiant. "Today, you will participate in a series of tests. Do not be alarmed. This is purely for research purposes." And the tall man in the center, the one who had been joking earlier, raised an eyebrow. "Research, huh?" he called out, his voice strong and steady. "What, you're gonna make us watch alien cooking shows or something?" A ripple of laughter spread through the group. Dr. Vexin stiffened, his eyes narrowing. Even now, facing the unknown, they joked. "Fascinating." "Not quite," he replied coolly. "We're more interested in observing your unique psychological responses." "Yeah?" the man shot back. "You sure it's not just an excuse to stare at our good looks? Can't blame you, really." The human snickered again. Dr. Vexin's hands clenched into fists. This was exactly what he wanted to understand. Why did they react like this? What was the purpose? "Activate the first simulation," he ordered. The chamber shimmered, and the humans stiffened as the environment around them shifted. The metallic walls faded, replaced by a dense, dark forest. The air grew thick and humid, filled with the distant roars of unseen creatures. The ground beneath their feet transformed into soft, loamy soil, and then the predators appeared, massive, hulking beasts with glowing eyes and razor-sharp claws, their bodies sleek and muscular, prowled out from the shadows. They moved silently, circling the group of humans with predatory intent. Most species, when faced with such a threat, would have reacted with terror, screams, panic, desperate attempts to flee. But the humans? The tall man glanced at the closest predator, a huge beast with teeth like knives, and grinned. "Hey, buddy," he drawled, his voice light. "I hope you're not planning on eating us for dinner. I heard human food gives aliens heartburn." His companions snorted, a few of them openly laughing. One of the women elbowed him playfully. "Yeah, they probably don't know what to do with all the cholesterol." The predators froze, their eyes narrowing in confusion. They seemed almost uncertain, as if unsure how to respond. Are they mocking the predators?" One of the Zintari researchers whispered in disbelief. "They're facing imminent death," Dr. Vexine murmured, his gaze glued to the display. And yet, they laughed. The humans continued to joke and laugh, even as the predators closed in. One of the men pretended to take a selfie with the hulking beast looming behind him, grinning cheekily at his companions. Another started humming a Johnny tune, swaying slightly as if he were at a casual picnic. The predators hesitated, their movements growing sluggish. They glanced at each other, almost as if they were confused. And then, to the Zintari's utter disbelief, the beast turned and slunk back into the shadows, their tails flicking nervously. "They retreated!" one of the researchers gasped. Dr. Vexin leaned forward, his eyes wide with shock. "No, they were driven back." He turned to his team, his voice trembling with excitement, humor, sarcasm. "It's not just a reaction, it's a weapon." The implications were staggering. Could this be why humans laughed in the face of danger? To destabilize their enemies? To project confidence, even when none existed? "Prepare the next simulation," Dr. Vexine ordered, his voice brimming with determination. "We're just getting started." As the humans relaxed, trading grins and high fives, Dr. Vexin watched them with newfound respect. There was more to human laughter than he had ever imagined, and he was going to uncover every last secret. The observation chamber buzzed with activity. Dr. Vexin stood before a massive holographic screen, his expression tense as he replayed the footage of the earlier experiment. The predator's retreat was inexplicable. It wasn't fear. These creatures were genetically engineered to be fearless hunters. Yet something in the humans' laughter, their casual banter, had confused them, disrupted their predatory instincts. "It defies all logic," one of the junior researchers murmured, staring at the screen. Their reactions were unnatural, almost as if they were provoking the creatures intentionally. Dr. Vexin nodded thoughtfully. "But why? What is it about laughter that unsettles even the fiercest predators?" He turned to the team gathered around him. "We need to delve deeper. Let's introduce a variety of simulations, each one more intense than the last. I want to see if their response changes with different stressors." His assistant blinked. "Different stressors, sir?" Dr. Vexin's eyes gleamed. "Yes. Physical danger, psychological manipulation, emotional trauma. If humor is truly a tool for survival, it should manifest across multiple scenarios." A murmur of unease rippled through the room, but no one challenged the order. The Zintari were dedicated to unraveling this mystery, no matter what it took. With a flick of his fingers, Dr. Vexin activated the chamber's control panel. The holographic walls shimmered, shifting as the environment around the humans transformed once more. Inside the observation chamber, the humans looked around warily as the simulation solidified. The forest vanished, replaced by a vast, empty desert under a blazing sun. The temperature soared, the dry air shimmering with heat waves. It was an environment designed to drain their stamina, to test their endurance. But instead of panicking, the humans exchanged glances. One of them, a short, wiry woman with cropped red hair, grinned and pointed dramatically at the horizon. "Welcome to the next episode of Alien Survivor," she announced, mimicking the voice of a reality TV host. "Today's challenge: who can avoid heat stroke the longest?" The others chuckled, wiping sweat from their brows with exaggerated motions. Another man shielded his eyes and squinted at the endless dunes. "Hey, I think I see a Starbucks out there," he deadpanned. The group burst into laughter, and Dr. Vexin felt his frustration mount. Why? Why did they keep doing this? Are they incapable of understanding the seriousness of their situation? He demanded, turning to his team. "This environment should be triggering a flight-or-fight response, not amusement." The researchers exchanged baffled looks. It's as if they're using humor as a shield," one ventured cautiously, "a way to deny the reality of their circumstances." "But it's not denial," another argued, pointing at the physiological data. "Look at their heart rates. They're aware of the danger. They're not ignoring it. They're just choosing to respond differently." Dr. Vexin's eyes narrowed, choosing to laugh in the face of adversity. Interesting. He leaned closer to the screen, watching as the humans continued to banter and joke, their camaraderie unbroken by the hostile environment. There was something almost defiant about it, as if they were saying, "We won't let you break us." But how far could that defiance stretch? "Increase the heat," he ordered sharply. "Let's see how long their laughter lasts." The desert simulation intensified. The temperature soared, the air becoming so dry it hurt to breathe. The holographic sun beat down mercilessly, and the sand shimmered with an almost unbearable brightness. Yet the humans' laughter, though strained, didn't falter. One of the women, a petite, dark-haired civilian, collapsed to her knees, gasping for breath. But as her companions rushed to help her, she waved them off with a wry smile. "No worries, guys," she panted. "Just working on my tan." Her words, barely more than a whisper, still managed to draw snorts of laughter from the others. Dr. Vexen stared, his mouth agape. Even now, with their bodies pushed to the limit, they still found a way to joke. "Unbelievable," he breathed. "Doctor, their core temperatures are reaching critical levels," a researcher warned. "If we continue, they could suffer permanent damage." "Deactivate the simulation," Dr. Vexen ordered reluctantly. The desert shimmered and vanished, replaced once more by the sterile walls of the chamber. The humans slumped to the ground, panting and wiping sweat from their brows. Yet, even as they gasped for breath, one of them, a lanky man with a crooked grin, managed to sit up and give a mock cheer. "Well, that was refreshing," he wheezed. "Anyone up for round two?" The others groaned and chuckled, shaking their heads. Dr. Vexen watched them, his mind racing. There was more to this than simple defiance. It was almost as if humor was a way for them to reclaim control, to assert their dominance over a situation that should have left them helpless. "We need to push them further," he murmured. "We need to see what happens when laughter is the only thing they have left." His assistant shifted nervously. "What kind of scenario are you suggesting, sir?" Dr. Vexen's gaze darkened. "One that challenges them mentally. Let's see if their laughter can withstand a psychological assault." The chamber shifted once more. This time, instead of a physical environment, the humans found themselves surrounded by darkness. Whispering voices echoed around them, soft, sibilant murmurs that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. The air buzzed with unseen energy, and strange, shadowy shapes flitted at the edges of their vision. What is this?" one of the men muttered, his voice tight. The whispers grew louder, forming words, now taunting, mocking. They spoke of failure, of loss, of the inevitable end that awaited each of them. Personal fears and regrets were dredged up, projected in vivid, painful clarity. The shadows coalesced into familiar shapes: loved ones, friends, memories of those they had lost or failed to protect. The humans stiffened, their laughter fading. Dr. Vexen leaned forward, his heart pounding. "Yes, now we see the truth. Now we see what happens when they can no longer hide behind humor." But just as the tension in the chamber seemed to reach a breaking point, one of the humans, a stocky woman with short-cropped hair, snorted. "Really? That's the best you've got?" she called out, her voice strong and mocking. "Come on, I've had worse nightmares after eating too much cheese." The others blinked, then chuckled softly. One by one, their posture straightened, their expressions hardened. "Hey, shadow jerk," another man added, jabbing a finger at one of the dark figures. "My ex was scarier than you, and she didn't have to turn into a ghost to do it." The whispers faltered, their rhythm breaking. The shadows flickered, as if taken aback. Dr. Vexen's breath caught in his throat. It was happening again. Laughter, defiance, even in the face of their deepest fears. But it wasn't just humor now. It was something stronger, something that seemed to reinforce their sense of self, to protect their minds from breaking under the strain. "They're using humor to shield themselves," he whispered, "to maintain their identity, even when everything else is falling apart." One of the Zintari researchers glanced at him, her expression awed. "Doctor, what are we witnessing?" Dr. Vexen shook his head slowly. "The essence of human resilience." As the simulation continued, the humans grew bolder. They shouted taunts at the shadowy figures, laughed in the face of the whispered threats. And as their laughter echoed through the chamber, the darkness seemed to weaken, the shadows receding. Dr. Vexen's hands trembled as he watched. This wasn't just laughter. This was something far more powerful. "Humor is not a sign of weakness," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "It's a weapon, a tool. They're using it to fight back, to take control." The chamber's lights flared as the shadows finally dissolved, leaving the humans standing alone in the empty room. They were panting, their faces flushed, but their eyes were clear and bright, and on their lips, small, triumphant smiles lingered. "Simulation terminated," the assistant announced shakily. Dr. Vexen turned to his team, his expression fierce. "We've been looking at this all wrong. Humor isn't just a reaction, it's a strategy, a way to reclaim power in a situation where they should have none." He paused, his gaze drifting back to the humans on the screen. "And if they can weaponize humor, what else are they capable of?" As the team stared at the humans in stunned silence, Dr. Vexen's mind raced. He had stumbled upon something extraordinary, something that could change their understanding of humanity forever. But to fully grasp it, they would have to push the humans even further, much further. The research chamber buzzed with the low hum of machinery as the next phase of the experiment began. Dr. Vexen stood at the observation deck, his eyes fixed on the human subjects below. After their previous experiments, he had a new theory, a radical hypothesis that bordered on the absurd. Humor, specifically sarcasm, was a tool that humans wielded to maintain psychological superiority, even in situations of extreme distress. To test his theory, the Zintari researchers had designed a scenario specifically intended to provoke sarcastic responses. The chamber shifted once more, transforming into a cramped, poorly lit room that resembled the hold of a ship. The air shimmered, and an alien figure materialized in front of the humans. A hulking creature, with gleaming fangs and spines running down its back, clad in the uniform of a brutal interstellar prison guard. Dr. Vexen leaned forward, anticipation tightening in his chest. "Let's see what happens when we push them to the edge," he murmured. The creature towered over the humans, its eyes glowing a fierce orange. It folded its massive arms across its chest and sneered. "Pitiful Earthlings," it growled, its voice dripping with contempt. "You think your so-called humor makes you strong? Your race is weak. You will break, just like all the others." The humans exchanged glances. Then, one of them, a lanky man with a shock of blonde hair, raised an eyebrow. "Oh no, you've caught us," he deadpanned, his voice dripping with exaggerated fear. "What are we going to do, guys? He's using mean words." The creature blinked, its sneer faltering. The man's companions snickered softly, a few of them covering their mouths as if trying to stifle their amusement. "What did you say, human?" the alien growled, leaning down menacingly. The blond man shrugged, his expression bored. "Sorry, I must have misheard you. I thought I heard you say something intimidating, but all I'm getting is blah blah. Earthlings are weak. You might want to work on your delivery." The alien reared back, its eyes blazing with fury. "You dare mock me?" Another human, a petite woman with a scar across her cheek, snorted. "Mock you? No. We wouldn't dream of it. This is us being polite. You really don't want to see us in full sarcasm mode." Dr. Vexen's fingers tightened around the console as he watched the scene unfold. The humans were surrounded, outmatched in every way, and yet they faced their tormentor with mockery, as if his words meant nothing. "Fascinating," Dr. Vexen whispered. "Their words are a form of resistance, a way to undermine authority." The alien guard loomed closer, its massive form blotting out the light as it leaned down to snarl in the humans' faces. "Enough. You will show respect, or I will—" "Bore us to death?" the blond man interrupted brightly. "Too late, big guy. I was bored the minute you started talking." The creature froze, a look of utter disbelief crossing its face. It stared down at the human, its expression wavering between rage and confusion. For a moment, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Then, one of the other humans, a middle-aged man with graying hair, sighed theatrically. "This is what we get for being put in your custody. I swear, prison guards used to be scarier." The others chuckled, shaking their heads. The creature's eyes widened, its fury replaced by bewilderment. It straightened, its gaze darting between the humans as if trying to comprehend what was happening. They're undermining its authority," one of the Zintari researchers murmured, her voice tinged with awe. Dr. Vexen nodded slowly. "Yes, sarcasm is more than just humor. It's a way of disarming the powerful. By mocking the creature, they're turning the tables, making it feel small, ridiculous." He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with fascination. "Imagine if this strategy were applied in a real combat scenario. An enemy who is mocked, who feels less threatening, might hesitate, might doubt themselves." The implications were staggering. Could it be that sarcasm was not just a social tool, but a psychological weapon, one that humans wielded instinctively, even in the most dangerous of circumstances? "Run the next scenario," Dr. Vexen ordered sharp. "I want to see if this behavior persists under different conditions." The scene shifted. The humans found themselves in a new environment, a sleek, sterile room with white walls and a single, massive window that overlooked a vast, swirling nebula. A holographic projection flickered to life before them, displaying an alien diplomat with an imperious air. "Greetings, Earthlings," the hologram intoned, its voice cold and formal. "You are here to negotiate for your survival. Failure to comply will result in your immediate termination." The humans glanced at each other. Then, the blond man stepped forward, his expression serious. "Well, if we're negotiating for survival, I think we should start with snacks," he said, his tone completely earnest. "Maybe some cheese and crackers. You know, something light to take the edge off. One of the women nodded thoughtfully. Yeah, and maybe a nice bottle of wine? You know, to show that we're willing to cooperate? The others nodded sagely, murmuring agreement. The diplomat's expression flickered, its calm facade crumbling. You will not mock me, it snapped. This is a matter of life and death. Exactly, the blonde man agreed cheerfully, which is why we need to get the appetizers right. Wouldn't want to go into a high-stakes negotiation on an empty stomach. The alien diplomat sputtered, its image wavered. The human sarcasm was relentless, turning the serious situation into a farce. And as they laughed and bantered, the tension in the room seemed to melt away. Do you see? Dr. Vexen murmured, his eyes wide with realization. It's more than just defiance, humor, sarcasm. They're using it to alter the emotional state of the group, to create camaraderie, even in a hostile environment. He gestured to the humans on the screen, who were now engaged in a mock debate about the best kind of appetizers to serve at interstellar peace negotiations. They're not just resisting. They're bonding, he whispered, using humor to strengthen their group identity, to make themselves feel invincible. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, the room fell silent as the researchers processed the implications. If humor could be used to forge unity under stress, what else could it do? Dr. Vexen's gaze sharpened. There was one more test he needed to conduct, one that would push the humans to their absolute limit. He hesitated, glancing at his assistant. Despair protocol, he ordered quietly. The assistant paled. Sir, that protocol. I know, Dr. Vexen cut him off. But we need to see what happens when there is no hope left. When their laughter is the only thing standing between them and despair. With a trembling hand, the assistant activated the protocol. The lights in the chamber dimmed, and a heavy, oppressive silence descended. The humans looked around warily. The hologram of the diplomat vanished, replaced by a single message scrawled across the wall in glowing red letters. You have failed. The walls shifted, displaying images of destruction, cities in flames, loved ones screaming in terror, worlds collapsing into darkness. The humans flinched, their laughter fading as the weight of the simulation bore down on them. Look at them, one of the researchers whispered. They're losing hope. Dr. Vexen said nothing, his gaze fixed on the screen. This was the moment of truth. Would their laughter break under the strain? But then slowly, one of the women, the petite, dark-haired civilian, took a deep breath and squared her shoulders. Well, if we're going out, I guess we might as well do it in style, she said quietly. The others stared at her. Then, one by one, they began to smile. Yeah, the blonde man agreed, his voice soft but strong. If we're gonna fail, let's fail spectacularly. The tension in the room shifted, the despair giving way to something else. Defiance, strength, and then, to Dr. Vexen's utter shock, they began to laugh. The humans' laughter echoed through the chamber, ringing out like a challenge. Even as the images of death and destruction loomed around them, even as the message of failure blazed brighter, they laughed. Do you see, Doctor? One of the researchers whispered, his voice trembling. They're laughing in the face of annihilation. Dr. Vexen's heart pounded in his chest. It's not just a reaction, he breathed. It's an act of rebellion, of defiance. They're saying, you can't break us. He watched, transfixed, as the humans stood together, their laughter growing louder and louder, drowning out the simulation's threats. They're unbreakable, he whispered. Dr. Vexen's gaze hardened. He had pushed them to the brink, and still they had not broken. But there was one more experiment left. One final test that would reveal the true nature of human resilience. Prepare for the final scenario, he ordered softly. If laughter was humanity's greatest weapon, then he would see just how powerful it really was. The research chamber buzzed with a tense energy as the alien scientists made final adjustments to the simulation parameters. This would be the ultimate test, the one that would push the humans past the limits of reason, past the point where any other species would have broken. It was designed to strip away every illusion of hope, to confront them with the reality of absolute defeat. Are you certain this is wise, Doctor? One of the researchers murmured, his expression uneasy. Dr. Vexen didn't look up from the console. We must understand, fully and completely, what makes humans laugh in the face of destruction. If we can unlock this secret, we will have unraveled the most profound mystery of human psychology. He turned to the assistant monitoring the simulation controls. Begin the final scenario. With a soft hum, the chamber's walls shifted once more. The humans tensed as the sterile room was replaced by the deck of a burning starship. The floor shuddered under their feet as explosions rocked the hull, flames licking at the walls. The distant howl of escaping atmosphere filled the air, and the lights flickered ominously. This time, there was no enemy to fight, no shadows to taunt, just the cold, unrelenting reality of a ship tearing itself apart around them. Welcome, humans, Dr. Vexen's voice echoed through the speakers, cold and detached. This simulation replicates the final moments of a doomed vessel. There is no escape. Your demise is certain. He paused, watching them closely. "What will you do now?" The humans exchanged glances. One of them, a burly man with a grizzled beard, staggered to his feet, coughing as smoke billowed around them. He squinted at the flaming control panels, then turned to his companions with a lopsided grin. "Well, folks, looks like we're not getting the deposit back on this one." The others groaned and chuckled, shaking their heads. The bearded man clapped his hands together, his expression mock-serious. "All right, last one to the escape pods buys the first round when we get to the afterlife." "Are there even escape pods?" a young woman quipped, raising an eyebrow. "Nope," the man replied, cheerfully. "But if we pretend hard enough, maybe the universe will throw us a bone." Laughter rippled through the group, soft, hesitant, but unmistakable. Dr. Vexen's eyes narrowed. This wasn't supposed to happen. They were supposed to be breaking, not laughing. "Activate the reactor meltdown!" he snapped. The walls of the chamber flared with light as the ship's reactor core began to overload. A blaring alarm filled the air, and a computerized voice announced calmly, "Reactor core breach imminent. Total destruction in 60 seconds." The humans fell silent, their eyes widening. The tension thickened, and for a moment, Dr. Vexen thought he had finally succeeded. But then, to his disbelief, the bearded man threw back his head and laughed. A loud, booming laugh that echoed through the burning chamber. "Well, it's been a hell of a ride. Guys," he called out, his voice ringing with defiance. "Guess this is where we find out if heaven has a good bar." One of the women shook her head, a rueful smile tugging at her lips. "Oh no, I bet it's got terrible service. They probably make you wait 1,000 years just to get a drink." "Great! Eternity with bad bartenders." Another mutt. "Just what I always wanted." The others laughed, even as the flames crept closer, even as the countdown ticked relentlessly towards zero. "What is wrong with them?" one of the Zentari scientists whispered, his eyes wide with disbelief. "They're laughing in the face of certain death." Dr. Vexen's jaw tightened. "Increase the intensity. Remove any possibility of escape." The assistant hesitated. "Doctor, if we push them any further?" "Do it!" Dr. Vexen snapped. The chamber shifted again. The starship's deck vanished, replaced by a vast, featureless plain shrouded in darkness. A single towering figure loomed over the humans, a monstrous silhouette with glowing eyes and claws, like scythes. It was a manifestation of pure terror, designed to evoke every primal fear buried deep within the human psyche. The humans froze, their laughter dying in their throats. The creature loomed closer, its massive form blotting out the sky. It leaned down, its breath hot and foul as it whispered in a voice like grinding stone. "You are nothing, weak, insignificant. You will die here, alone, and your species will be forgotten." The air trembled with the weight of the creature's words. The humans shrank back, their faces pale. For the first time, real fear flickered in their eyes. "Break, damn you," Dr. Vexen whispered, his hands trembling. "Why won't you break?" But then, slowly, one of the men, a wiry figure with sharp eyes, took a step forward. His gaze locked onto the creature's blazing eyes, and a thin, fierce smile spread across his lips. "Oh yeah?" he murmured softly. "If we're so insignificant, why are you wasting your time on us?" The creature recoiled, its eyes narrowing. The man's smile widened. "Seriously, you've got all this power? All this rage? And you're using it to mess with us? I think someone's compensating for something." A ripple of laughter spread through the group. The creature hissed, its claws twitching in fury. But the humans were laughing again. Soft, breathless laughter, tinged with madness and defiance. "You're pathetic!" the man continued, his voice rising. "All that strength, and you can't even break a bunch of puny little humans. Maybe you're the weak one." The creature howled in fury, its massive form shuddering. But the humans just laughed louder, their voices ringing out like a challenge. "You want to destroy us?" the man shouted. "Go ahead, but you'll never take away this." He tapped his temple, his eyes blazing. "Our spirit, our laughter, that's ours, and you can't have it." Dr. Vexen staggered back, his mind reeling. This was impossible. No species should be able to respond like this. No species should be able to wield laughter like a weapon. "Shut it down," he whispered hoarsely. "Shut it all down." The simulation dissolved, the darkness lifting to reveal the sterile chamber once more. The humans stood in a loose circle, panting and trembling, but their smiles remained. They turned to the observation window, their eyes defiant. "What are you?" Dr. Vexen breathed, staring down at them. "How can you laugh in the face of death?" The wiry man looked up, his gaze meeting Dr. Vexen's through the glass. "Because we're human," he said simply, "and you'll never understand what that means." Before Dr. Vexen could respond, an alarm blared through the facility. The researchers stiffened, glancing around in confusion. "Alert! Incoming transmission!" A voice crackled over the intercom. It's from the Vothrani system. They're requesting assistance. Dr. Vexen frowned, turning to the nearest terminal. Why would the Vothrani? The message played, a garbled plea filled with static, but one word cut through clearly. Humans! The room fell silent. Dr. Vexen's gaze snapped back to the humans in the chamber below. They were watching him intently, their expressions unreadable. What have your people done? He whispered. The wiry man shrugged. Nothing much. Just made some new friends. His grin widened, sharp and fierce. You should be careful, Doc. It's dangerous to mess with people who know how to laugh. Dr. Vexen's heart pounded. The implications were staggering. Had the humans turned their defiance, their laughter, against another species? Pull up the transmission logs, he ordered urgently. I want to know everything about this conflict. As the logs came through, a chill ran down Dr. Vexen's spine. The humans were not just surviving, they were winning. Against all odds, against superior forces, they were pushing back. And the reports were filled with references to laughter, taunts, and psychological warfare. They're using humor to disrupt their enemies, one of the researchers murmured, her face pale. To undermine their morale, to break them from the inside out. Dr. Vexen stared at the screens, his mind racing. Humor wasn't just a defense mechanism. It was a weapon that could shatter even the strongest of foes. By the stars, he whispered. We were looking at this all wrong. As the humans below continued to smile, Dr. Vexen felt a strange, creeping fear settle over him. They weren't just test subjects anymore. They were something far more dangerous. They were humanity, and they were laughing. Dr. Vexen stood at the observation window, staring down at the humans below with a mixture of awe and trepidation. They had shattered every hypothesis, defied every expectation. Their laughter, once thought to be a quirk of evolution, had been revealed as something far more powerful. It was a force that could turn fear into courage, despair into hope. And now, as reports of human resistance spread throughout the galaxy, the implications were becoming clearer. Prepare for the final experiment, he ordered quietly. His team hesitated, glancing at each other with uncertain eyes. The assistant shifted uneasily. Doctor, after everything we've seen, is it wise to continue? We've already learned so much. Dr. Vexen turned, his gaze hard. We haven't learned enough. There is still one thing we don't understand. How far can their defiance go? What happens when there's truly no hope left? He gestured to the humans below, who were leaning against the walls, talking and joking softly despite everything they'd been through. I want to see if they can still laugh in the face of complete annihilation, if their spirit can break. The assistant's eyes widened. Doctor, you can't mean... Yes, Dr. Vexen interrupted. We're going to show them the extinction of their race. A murmur of shock rippled through the room, but Dr. Vexen ignored it. He tapped a series of commands into the console, and the chamber's lights dimmed. The walls shifted, transforming into a massive, star-filled void. A holographic image of Earth appeared, spinning serenely in the center of the room. The humans stiffened, their eyes widening as they stared up at the projection. Dr. Vexen leaned forward, his voice cold and clinical. Earth, your home. Imagine for a moment that it no longer exists. He pressed another command, and the image of Earth exploded in a flash of brilliant light. The shockwave rippled outward, consuming everything in its path. The humans gasped, stepping back as the projection showed the destruction spreading through the galaxy, obliterating every human colony, every settlement. You are the last of your kind, Dr. Vexen continued softly. There is no one left, no allies, no reinforcements, just you. Silence fell. The humans stood frozen, staring up at the image of their homeworld's destruction. For a long moment, Dr. Vexen thought he had done it, that he had finally broken them. But then, slowly, one of the men, the blonde-haired joker, let out a low, shaky laugh. Well, there goes the neighborhood. His voice trembled, and for a moment it seemed like he might break. But then one of the others snorted softly. Yeah, she murmured. Bet that's gonna mess with property values. The others chuckled weakly, their laughter tinged with pain and bitterness. But it was laughter all the same. Dr. Vexen's eyes widened. You're laughing? Why? The blonde man turned to the observation window, his gaze piercing. Because we're still here. His voice was soft but steady. We're still standing, and as long as one of us is left, humanity isn't gone. He gestured to the other, his expression fierce. You can destroy our worlds. You can kill our people, but you'll never take this from us. Dr. Vexen felt a chill crawl down his spine. What do you mean? The man smiled, a grim, defiant smile. Our spirit, our ability to laugh, even when everything is falling apart. That's ours, and no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, you'll never be able to break that. He took a step forward, his eyes blazing. Because we're human, and that means we're stronger than you can ever imagine. Dr. Vexen staggered back, his heart pounding. This was impossible. No species should be able to react like this. They should be weeping, screaming, broken, but they weren't. They were laughing in the face of their own extinction. What are you? He whispered. The blonde man's smile softened. We're survivors, Doc, and no matter what you throw at us, We'll keep finding a reason to laugh, because that's what it means to be human. Dr. Vexen stared down at them, his mind racing. This defiance, this unbreakable spirit, it was more than just a quirk of evolution. It was the very essence of humanity. Laughter wasn't just a response to fear. It was a declaration that no matter how dark the world became, humanity would never surrender. End the simulation, he whispered. The chamber returned to its sterile, empty state. The humans relaxed, exchanging glances as if coming down from a great battle. But the defiance in their eyes hadn't faded. If anything, it had grown stronger. Take them back to their quarters, Dr. Vexen ordered quietly. The researchers moved to comply, still shaken by what they had witnessed. Dr. Vexen watched as the humans were led away, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. He had set out to understand why humans laughed. Now, he realized, he had only scratched the surface of a far greater mystery. Dr. Vexen sat alone in his office, staring at the blank screen before him. His hands trembled as he began to type. Humans are unique among known species in their use of humor as a psychological tool. Laughter, sarcasm, and defiance serve not merely as coping mechanisms, but as weapons of psychological warfare. They enable humans to maintain a sense of identity and control, even in situations of utter despair. This resilience is not rooted in strength or superiority. It is rooted in their ability to redefine the terms of engagement. Where others see fear, they see opportunity. Where others see defeat, they see a reason to laugh. In short, humanity cannot be broken because they refuse to. They will always find a reason to smile, a reason to joke, a reason to hope. And as long as they can do that, they are more dangerous than any force in the galaxy. Recommendation: any further attempts to subjugate or eradicate humanity should be approached with extreme caution. Their greatest weapon is not their technology, nor their numbers. It is their spirit, and that cannot be destroyed. He paused, his fingers hovering over the keys. Then, slowly, he added a final note. Conclusion: humanity is unbreakable. The message spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The Zintari, the Vorthak, the Tarlasi, all the great powers read Dr. Vexen's report with a mixture of disbelief and dread. How could a species be unbreakable? How could they face death and laugh? But as the stories of human resilience spread, so did the whispers. The whispers of a species that refused to surrender, of a race that wielded laughter like a weapon, a race that no matter how many times it was beaten down, always stood back up with a grin. They called it the human paradox, and soon, the galaxy began to understand what the Zintari had learned too late. You could conquer their worlds, you could slaughter their armies, but as long as one human still had the strength to smile, humanity would never be defeated. Years later, on a distant, war-torn world, a lone human soldier stood against the tide of an alien invasion. His comrades were gone, his weapons depleted. The enemy closed in, their eyes burning with triumph. But the soldier didn't cower. He didn't beg. He didn't run. He smiled. "Come on then," he called out, his voice ringing through the smoke and ash. "Let's see if you can handle a human." The aliens hesitated, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. And in that moment, the human laughed, a soft, defiant sound that echoed through the battlefield. "Yeah," he murmured, "that's what I thought." And then, with a grin, he charged, because he was human, and humans never stop laughing.